Okay, so today we're going to look at what is division. And division is how many times something division is how many times something can be split into certain parts. And that's kind of a layman's definition. It's not the rigorous mathematical definition. So typically when we see division, you might notate it like this. 3 divided by 1. And 3 can be divided into 1 parts 3 times if you thought about having 3 things. I don't know. Let's do 3 trees. And I wanted to divide them into parts of 1. Well, I could have 3 parts of 1. This is 1, and I'd have 3 parts of those. What if I wanted 2 of them? Well, then we're going to have to get a little tricky here because we only have 3. We're going to have to take 1 from here and then like half of this guy and give the other half to this group, and then that would be 2 groups coming from 3 things. So another way we can write that would be, if we did that grouping, we'd have 3 halves. And the fraction bar that you're always used to seeing is division. This fraction just means that we're splitting it into this many parts. So some certain things with division, it's not commutative. 3 divided by 2 is not equal to 2 divided by 3. So if we had 3 divided by 2, let's go back to our tree example here. Might just make them arrows to make them easier to draw. But let's say we have this top number says we have 3 trees, where this number right in front says we only have 2. So right off the bat, we're dealing with 2 different things. This 3 divided by 2 right here is going to get split into 2 groups. The second number here is going to tell us how many groups. So this is going to be group 1 and 2. And then this one's going to get split into 3 groups, and there's no really easy way to do it, so I guess they're both getting parts of trees. So 1, 2, make the trees a little bigger. 3. So these 2 are not equal at all. And if we were to write this, we don't really like in algebra, we're not going to really use this sign too much. It might have been good in arithmetic, but we're going to pretty much put everything into fractions. So we're going to write this as 2/3. And this one will be 3 halves. And those are not equal. So let's look at how we'll treat it with a variable. So if we have x divided by x, it's important to know that x could be any number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 5.724. But whatever this x is, it has to also be this x. They have to be identical. If not, then the x's are just defined wrong. So if this x were to be 1, then that x would have to be 1. So 1 divided by 1 is equal to 1. If this x was 7.24 and this one was 7.24, they're the same number, so the same thing can go into the same number exactly 1 time. So this has a lot of important important consequences with it. So if I was to have 7 over 3 plus 6 over 4, it's important that these cannot be added as they sit. You couldn't just do this. This is what you can't do. You can't go 7 plus 6 and 3 plus 4. Because remember, up here we have our groupings, and 3 groups is not the same thing as 4 groups. That should be pretty apparent to you. So what we need to do is have these numbers be split into the same amount of groups, and that is the reason that we have to find a common denominator. So we have 3 7/3, and we need a 4 on the bottom. And we can't just multiply it by anything. We have to multiply it by an important number, and that number is 1. But the 1 isn't going to look like what you're typically used to seeing. We're going to write it as 4 over 4, because how many times can 4 be divided by 4? Well, 1. If I had 4 trees, and I wanted a group of 4 trees, well, that would just be one group. I'd have one group. So that right there, and we know that 1 multiplied by anything won't change the argument either. So let's say I have 2 times 1. Well, what really is that? Well, that's just 2 1 times. So that would just be equal to 2. So multiplying here isn't going to change anything of the argument. We haven't done anything different. So what we're going to do is over here, over 4, we're going to look at this number right here, and now this one has to correspond to that one. So we're going to just write this 3 over 3. And then what we're going to do is multiply. And remember, when you're multiplying fractions, it just goes straight across. So we're going to have 28 over 3 times 4 is 12 plus 18 over 12. Since these are both now being divided into the same groups, what we can do is say we have 28 plus 18 over 12, because these are alike. Now we're good to go. So now what we're going to do is just add this up. 28 and 18 would be, we'd have a 6 here, carry the 1, that would be 46 over 12. So now what we got to do is reduce this. So it's not done here. If you stop here, answer's wrong. We need to simplify. And the one reason I knew that is because they're both even numbers. An even number is a number that can be divided by 2. So we're going to do that. We see these are both even. 6 and 2 are both even. We're not looking at the front numbers. We're only looking at the last 2. If they're both even, we can divide 2 out of them. So that would be 23 and 6. And this would be our final answer. So let's look at it with variables. Let's say we have 7x plus 3 divided by x plus 3. Well, what happens here? Well, remember, these two x's have to be the same. If this was a y, we wouldn't be able to do it because we don't know what y and x is. But since we know that the x's are going to be changing at the same amount of time, if this x is let's just put in test values. Let's say this x is a 1, then this x down here has to be 1 because x has to equal x. 1 plus 3, 1 plus 3. Well, let's look at this now. We're going to have 7, and this is being multiplied by all of this, so we can just say 4 divided by 4. Well, 4 divided by 4 is just 1, right? So this is just going to equal 7. So we can know that these values are just going to cancel out and leave us with 7. That's the quick way of writing it. Let's look at right now some other problems. So let's say we have x plus 3. Okay, so let's look at simplifying this one. Now the big thing that you cannot do here is you cannot just multiply these. This is an addition sign in between. It's not multiplication. So what we do is we find a common denominator just like we did. And in this one we're going to have x's in it. So we're going to have x plus 3 multiplied by x plus 2 over x plus 2. Which we've already proved over here is just going to be 1. Then we're going to add plus x plus 3, x plus 2, and the 1 on the bottom here, we need an x plus 3, so this will be x plus 3 over x plus 3. Okay, let's solve this now. We're going to have, first off, now we have the amount of groups we're going to have is going to be the same. We're going to multiply this guy times that, but we're not going to distribute it yet. We're just going to keep it like it is. But we are going to put the whole thing over x plus 3 over x plus 2 plus x plus 3 times x plus 3. Okay. So at this point, we're going to do a lot of foiling and figure out what we're going to get. So what we're going to do is multiply this x with the distributive property. It goes into both of them. So let's do that one first. We'll get x squared plus 2x. And then we're going to add. Okay, we're going to distribute this x to these two first. That's going to give us x squared plus 3x. Because they're being multiplied. They're not being added here, they're being multiplied. Then we're going to take this 3 and multiply it to here and multiply it to there. So we're going to have plus 3x, and then we're going to have plus 9, because that's 3 times 3, not 3 plus 3. The plus is only what's going on inside the parentheses. When they're being multiplied, what they do is they distribute out. Divided by, we're just going to leave this as x plus 3, x plus 2 right now. Now we're going to group. We're going to have these. Well, if we're adding x squared 2 times, we know that that's going to really be 2x squared. Just like when we talked in the multiplication, remember, that's our coefficients are going to add. Okay, what about this guy? That's an x, that's in front. These two are x's, so we have 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So this is going to be plus 8x. Now we're going to have plus the 9, because there's nothing else that it simplifies with. Okay, so what we can do here is we can FOIL it. We can leave it like this if we want. This one won't simplify. Let's FOIL this bottom now and see what happens. So we are gonna have 2x squared plus 8x plus 9. On the bottom we're gonna end up with x squared plus 2x, and then we're gonna have over here 3x and 6. So these two are going to add up. This is going to be 2x squared plus 8x plus 9 divided by x squared plus 5x plus 6. That's our final answer. So that's pretty much it on division. Well, let's do an algebraic example real quick. X times 3 is equal to 7. So let's just try this one out. So if we wanted to get x by itself, and we have 3, well, we can divide it into 3 parts. And what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So as soon as we have this, we have x times 3 over 3 is equal to 7/3. Well, this 3 over 3 is just going to go to 1, so it's going to equal x equals 7/3. And that's how you're going to solve an algebraic problem. What we're going to say layman's term wise is that the division undoes multiplication, because here we're going to take, so let's say we have 3 times 4, we're going to have 4 things being added, or 3 things being added 4 times. We'll do arrows. We have 3 things being done 4 times. But then if we divided this by 4, well, we're going to take those 4 things, and what we're going to do is we're going to group them into 4s. Okay, so I made a mistake back there. So let's remember what the rules are. If I have 3 times 4, that's really saying I have 3 things, so we'll call these things the arrows, and they're getting added 4 times. So I really have 12 arrows. 1, 2, 3. That's a group of 3, and we're going to have 4 of these, so we'll make this, we'll have 3 going across, 4 going down. So there should be 12 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And let's say we divide it by 4. Well, then we have we've divided that into 4 groups. Now what's inside the groups is going to be our answer. And that's going to be, we have 3 things in the group. So that would just equal 3, because now when we divide, we're just going to look at what's inside one of the groups, and that'll be 3. So that is division.